As coronavirus cases hit record highs, some hopeful news is on the way in the arrival of vaccines. The UK approved Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine for emergency use, making it the first Western country to roll out a vaccine. Quicktake's Madison Mills has more on the latest vaccine developments. Madison, it's interesting to note this vaccine is being produced in the U.S., but it's approved first in the UK. So to start us off, what does this move forward from the British government mean for the vaccine race more broadly?
Right, Renita, this news is coming today as we're hearing from the current CDC director here in the U.S. that we could reach about 500,000 COVID-19 deaths by the end of 2020. So all of these developments coming as we're in this extreme surge in both cases and, unfortunately, deaths. But like you said, there is some hopeful news that we're getting out of the UK today. The British government did move forward with their approval of the Pfizer vaccine, where it will start getting rolled out across the UK. And a lot of people are questioning on social media today, why did the UK move forward with Pfizer's vaccine before the US? So I kind of want to dig into that for our audience really quickly. The big thing here is how the US government looks at clinical trial data, right? So Pfizer did all of these clinical trials. Now the FDA is going to meet in about a week to go through all of that raw data with an outside group of advisors. The UK doesn't do it that way. They really do dig through that data, but they look at Pfizer's final findings. They don't look at that raw initial data. So that's kind of the difference here and why the UK was able to move a little bit more quickly. But experts in the US who have covered coronavirus extensively here at Bloomberg have said that it may not be the worst thing that the US is not going to be the first Western country to move forward with the vaccine, because it allows us to have that additional time to build trust with people surrounding the vaccine. Renita, I feel like a broken record here. I know we talk about this all the time, but vaccine hesitancy in the U.S. is a huge problem for public health experts to address. Pew Research Center did a study that we, again, talk about all the time. It shows that vaccine hesitancy is at pretty much an all-time high here in the States. So the FDA is spending a little bit more time on these regulatory practices is kind of one way that they're going to ensure that people know the proper amount of time was spent looking into the vaccine.
Maddie, how will the FDA and other, and the CDC, as well as other medical organizations and federal programs, how else will they build trust with people? Because, as you know, there are several different groups of folks who have several different skepticisms about vaccines. So how are they thinking about tackling this problem? You know, is it meeting in person with people to try to explain the efficacy and any possible side effects? We don't know if there are any yet, but walk us through how else they might do this.
Right, Renita. So this is something that I've been reporting on extensively. And yesterday I listened to the CDC advisory panel's vote on who should get the vaccine first. And like you mentioned, there are a lot of groups that need more information and more data to feel particularly trustworthy in this vaccine. And one of those groups is women. And this is a statistic that blew my mind yesterday. About 75% of healthcare workers in the U.S. are women, and about 330,000 of those women could either be pregnant or postpartum when the vaccine starts getting distributed. But there's zero data on how the mRNA vaccine might impact this group. And this is something that is typical. This isn't new for vaccines. There is typically challenges surrounding getting vaccine data on how it impacts pregnant women. But this is a concern for public health experts in terms of that trust building. So I reached out to an expert today and we spoke more about this topic. I want to give you a quick listen to what she had to say. And to start us off, can you just tell me in layman's terms how a COVID-19 vaccine could stand to impact pregnant or postpartum mothers?
All of us know that the COVID vaccine is really wonderful news. And the effectiveness that has been demonstrated so far bodes very well for us getting through this pandemic. So pregnant women are generally excluded from research to develop new drugs and vaccines because of concerns about the ethics of imposing uncertain risk on the fetus in general. About the last 10 or 15 years, there has been a growing recognition that the exclusion of pregnant women from research has not, in fact, protected them from risk, but has created a situation in which they are forced to make a decision about whether or not to use a medication or a vaccine without adequate data to inform that decision.
Looking at this statistic that 75% of healthcare workers are women, was this an oversight in Pfizer and Moderna's clinical trials?
It's not as much an oversight as a product of the way things have been done for a long time. I think, optimistically, people have been talking about the need to get these data for pregnant women. My understanding is that there are ongoing discussions about gathering that kind of data. There are certainly people that enrolled in those studies that probably fell pregnant while after they were vaccinated. So there will be some data to inform the use of the vaccine. It's important to note that this is not a situation that is unfamiliar. Pregnant women often face decisions about whether to get vaccinated or take a medication without the kinds of data that would be specific to pregnancy. But the research, it's possible to do the research, and it's possible to do the research ethically. And what I've argued for years is that it's much more ethical to do the research and impose the risk in a research setting than to not do the research and then find out that there's a risk later on or not. I think we've tried to do scholarly work to make the case that ethics requires inclusion of pregnant women in research. And in the last couple of years, both the FDA and a federal task force have highlighted the critical need for gathering this kind of data. So my view is that there is a sea change, but some of these things can take a while to take hold. And so now I think the will is there, and we need to get the structures in place and the education in place so that it can happen. But unfortunately, not quickly enough for the context of COVID.
And just to contextualize this a bit, this is coming as we already know that vaccine hesitancy in the US is at an all-time high surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine, according to studies from Pew and other research centers. So I'm wondering how experts are looking into how they can build trust with women who are pregnant or postpartum in relation to getting the vaccine. How are they going to get people on board?
Yeah, so this is a really important question, and I think sharing the data, being as honest as possible about it, is absolutely critical. Encouraging folks to weigh the risks and considerations that are most important to them. I think it's really important to note that this kind of vaccine has not been associated with theoretical risk in pregnancy. We have a lot of experience with vaccination in pregnancy. We recommend flu vaccination in pregnancy. We recommend vaccination against other. There's a range of vaccines that we recommend in pregnancy, and we have excellent outcomes associated with them. It's important to remember that protecting the mom also leads to protection for a child. I am confident and optimistic that with a renewed focus on the need for evidence for vaccines and other therapeutics in pregnant women, that there will be a robust effort to gather data among the women who choose to be vaccinated. And I'm hopeful that there will be studies done that speak specifically to pregnant women's distinct physiologies and potential risks so that they can make more informed decisions.
We reached out to Pfizer for comment on this story today, and they responded saying Pfizer is following guidance provided by the Food and Drug Administration for development and licensure of vaccines to help prevent COVID-19, including the important consideration of use in pregnant and women of childbearing potential. Renita?
Thanks, Madison Mills. The FDA plans to review the upcoming clinical trial data on how the vaccine could impact pregnant women and postpartum women, and they'll update the guidance accordingly.
The biggest stories the moment they happen from around the globe. Subscribe to Bloomberg Quicktake now for insight in an instant.